This is my Atari 800 computer, originally purchased sometime in 1982, 3 or 4, I don't remember exactly. I used this as my one and only computer from the time of purchase until roughly 1994 when I finally bought a Macintosh. As far as I know, this computer still works. I did fire it up for the turn of the millennia to see what would happen. I did write software way back when that you could call an early precursor to the internet. They were called bulletin board services, and it has a clock program on it. So I set the date for 12/31/99 at 11:59 p.m. and watched it count down, and when it got to midnight, yes, it did freeze. So that was interesting. It was not able to just roll the date to 1100 and move on. If you remember, these have this pop open compartment with 2 cartridge slots, a left and a right, and if my memory is correct, the left is where you put all of the cartridges that you would buy. The right slot, as I recall, had little to no cartridges available for it. And as you see, this has screws here, and that's because this is a later edition of the 800. This came pre-installed with a whopping 48K of RAM. Originally, I believe they came with 16, and they were cartridges, so you could slide up to 3 16K cartridges and expand from 16K to up to 48K, and then eventually they just started all coming with 48K. The originals had latches there that you'd flip. I took the screws off, and when you took the latches off or take the screws out, you can lift this up and you can see the internals here. They used to sell basically these in a cartridge form, and you just click them into place, and then once they started selling them preloaded, then the cartridges were no longer a thing. I'm guessing the first board is probably like the processor board, and then these are the RAM. And think about a modern computer. Those are 16K RAM, and they're taking up that much space. I want to say my current Mac Pro has like 64 or 96 gigabytes of RAM, and it probably takes up less total geography than that. The similarities between this and the original Atari 2600 game system that most of you are familiar with, there's a lot of overlap. It has the same joystick controllers. You can also plug in the paddles. There's 4 on here. I believe the Atari 2600 only had 2. If my memory's working right. Just like the game systems, you had a start, select, option, and of course system reset. Very old school QWERTY keyboard, just the basic characters. You do have a control button, you do have an Atari button. I don't remember what the Atari button did, although I do know there was an Atari character when you would type. It's not an easy to type on keyboard compared to a modern one. However, back when this was my main computer, I could type very proficiently on it. Over here on the right side, you've got power on off switch. I believe that's the channel selector. These had to be plugged into your TV, so you went channel 3 or channel 4, whichever one had less interference. This is your Atari accessory port. So if you had an Atari 410 cassette, 810 floppy disk, or similar device, you could plug in there, and there's also a way to daisy chain them. I believe the printer also could plug into there. And then if not, then maybe that was the printer connector. I don't remember now. It's been a lot of years since I was using this. And then on the back, you just had the fixed wire for hooking up to your TV, and old school connector, and then I've converted it. And I think this will actually plug into a more modern TV now, just using that. If you remember the old days, you used to have like the rabbit ears antennas on your TV, and there was a box that this would plug into, and then you had a switch where you could watch TV or play your Atari. And I believe that this eliminates the need for that now on the modern TVs. So there she is, my very well preserved 40-year-old Atari 800 computer.